My topic is colonial classification and social identities in South Asia. Now, I'm going to explore two interlinking questions. And the first question is, how did the colonial methods of knowledge production shape social identities in South Asia? This being the how question, the next question is the why. Why was this knowledge an essential component of the colonial enterprise in this region? I think this is something, I think I saw Vijay Lakshmi had a question about what is the politics of human classification. And that has been explored by the earlier speakers. Perhaps this will contribute further to that question about what is the politics of all this. Now, these two interlinking questions I'm going to explore through the question of focusing on the caste identities in India. Now, when we talk about the how and the why question, the production of knowledge, and also the regime, the rule, that's where power is located, we are going into the realm of power and knowledge, which many of you are very familiar. I don't have to go detail into this. And that's, sorry. Okay. So it's about, the whole idea is to find out what Foucault is trying to say here. You can read for yourself. What Foucault is trying to say here is that how subjects are produced through various processes. And these includes for Foucault, the disciplinary disciplines and anthropology, sociology, medical sciences, psychology. All these are part of that disciplines that produce subjects. Similarly for Foucault, when he's trying to understand what produces subjects, he's also interested in dividing practices. Practices that divide the feeling of division within oneself, the divided feeling within oneself, and also the experience of division in relation to others, especially the feeling of sane as opposed to mad, the sick as opposed to the healthy. So all these are practices, discursive practices and disciplines that produce discourses. And that relate and manifest itself in power and knowledge, which are mutually constituted. And they are part of the same, two sides of the same coin. Therefore, there is no power relation without the correlative constitution of a field of knowledge, nor any knowledge that does not presuppose and constitute at the same time power relations. And together they produce the specific truth claims and rationalities that shape societies and identities. So therefore, we see the interplay of this power and knowledge in the production of caste identities. And when we talk about caste, the general understanding that we have of caste is we have the 4 categories, a stratification based on 4 categories, which again, all of you are familiar with it. For the purpose of this discussion, I'm just touching on these, not going detail into any of these. And these 4 categories include Brahmins, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and outside these four categories are the untouchables. And the three top categories are called the twice-born caste. They are called twice-born caste because of the initiation ceremony. They are born again. The initiation ceremony where they wear the sacred thread. So what we understand from this today, when we talk about caste, one thing that is very clear are the main features of the caste system. That is, it is endogamous. There is caste endogamy prevalent. There is also an occupational specialization. Each caste, Brahmins have their own priestly class, they've been called, and also the various other castes doing specific occupation. Then there is a hierarchy. That hierarchy is based on purity and pollution, the religious ideas, the Brahmins being on the top of the hierarchy, called the most pure, and the so-called formerly untouchable communities, the least pure at the bottom of the hierarchy. Then on the basis of this notion of purity and pollution, the next feature, that is commensality. Who do you sit with? Who do you eat with? Who do you drink with? So that all depends on the ideas of purity and pollution. Then this is also hereditary membership, that you are born into a caste. Now, in contemporary times, a lot of changes are taking place. But this is the kind of an understanding we have of caste. Now, if we have this understanding of caste, was it always like this? Did we have these main features maybe 200 years ago or even earlier, where all these four categories, as it is water-bound, very watertight compartments, did they exist at that time? No, this is the question of, we look at caste as a colonial construction. It is said that caste has never been a single system representing the core civilizational value in Indian tradition, but caste as a product of colonial modernity, 200 years of British rule. And one of the seminal works in this area, which comes from Nicholas Dirk's Castes of Mind, where he says at the introduction, he says he's not saying that the clever British invented caste, like in many rights of patency are given to the British. So he's saying it's not the British who created caste, but the way caste we understand today is basically the product of colonialism. It was under the British that caste became a symbol term capable of expressing, organizing, and above all, systematizing India's diverse forms of social identity, community, and organization. Now, how did this systematization take place? And that is where we come to the question of classification, the modes of classification, categorization that today's conference we are addressing. So the question of how then comes. How did the fussy, that means that which was certain amount of flexibility was there in terms of movement, mobility, how did that become enumerated? Census is crucial to this. And 1872, when the British began the caste, the census, the 10-year, the decennial census practice, caste became the center of classification. And for that classification, Brahmanical scale to determine the social hierarchy and ranking. Now, what were the questions then asked? How this social ranking took place? That's why questions like, if you are denied the services of Brahmins as family priests, so one of the categories where your social ranking, denied access to Hindus' temples, caused to pollution by certain distance or proximity, did not receive mantra from Brahmins or a recognized guru, did not worship Hindu gods, buried their dead, took beef or ate beef, did not show reverence to cows. Now, these were all in the census of 1911. So you can find it when you go into it. It's in 1911, 232 page and 33. Now, if Brahmanical norms are the only criteria for upward mobility, then we can imagine the kind of craze that it would create to show that they are upper castes. So caste identity becomes entrenched in the process of enumeration. Then what did the census reports do? Census reports were published in gazetteers, and they were also in settlement reports. Ethnographic studies further contributed to it, combining the book view. The book view meant the Hindu scriptures, the knowledge of caste that came from Manusmriti, Rig Veda, And then that was somehow reinforced through field studies, ethnographic studies, which Nima will also touch upon, I believe. So in this process, a book view and field view combined together to reinforce caste as the center of Indian civilization. And that you find again in the various studies by William Weiser and also Metcalfe, Village Republics, which you can read here. What he's trying to argue is the Indian villages are village republics. That means whatever happens outside doesn't matter. Whoever rules, whether it is ruled by Sikhs, Muslims, Mughals, Hindus, or the British, the village republics will remain unchanged. So this kind of an idea of caste-centered village was reinforced through ethnographic studies, as with the census. Now, then for the colonial subject, when caste becomes the only means of upward mobility, or the Brahmanical categories become the upward mobility, then there is an obsession with caste status, a preoccupation. So every caste then, for mobilization, for higher status, they try to form caste mobilization, caste organizations. And they all want to, most of the time, they want to become Kshatriya more than Brahmin, because it's a warrior. It is the whole manly warrior powers attached to it. So every society, every caste forms a sabha or an organization to raise their status by saying that they are Kshatriyas. So 1880s onwards to early 1900s, you find many of these caste organizations forming. And Dalits too formed their own caste organization. One of the first group to form was the caste called Dusad. In Bihar they are, in Uttar Pradesh. I do a lot of field work with the Dusads in Bihar. And you find they formed the Dusad Mahasabha or Sabha. And this person, Chuharmal, is one of their warriors. Now, in the last 50 years, the celebration centered around this warrior has become very prominent. It is believed that he killed 800 Bhumihar Brahmins in one day. And this is the village where I did field work. His statue was revered. So they say, if he could kill so many people, we have to be Kshatriyas. We belong to Kshatriya caste. We are a warrior class. So their claim of upward mobility comes through propagating this idea of this warrior legend from the community. Now, the second question is, if this is how the enumeration has created the centrality of caste, then the question is, why did caste became the central? What was the politics? This is the question which Vijayalakshmi was asking. What is the politics of this enumeration or classification? We have to see what happened in 1857. 1857 revolt, suddenly kind of the British woke up to it. Why did this happen? So from the company, East India Company, to the crown, the power was transferred. So in order to then control the colonial subjects, in order to rule effectively, you need to produce the knowledge of this community. For administration, justification for the British rule to the backwardness of the natives, all that can come from the study of caste. The various hierarchies, the notions of purity and pollution. And it also justified, colonial rule was justified, saying that it is unchanging no matter who rules it, like Metcalfe's idea of village republics. Therefore, a rationalization, political dominance is, there's no problem with it. Legitimization of the colonial rule, because India will remain the same, it is unchanging. And the Project Empire also was helped by the theory, a martial race theory. These study certain castes are martial races and fit for soldiering. And therefore you got Sikh, Gurkha, Pathan, Dogra, Jat. So these were part of the strategies of the rule. They wanted to get rid of the Bengal army, which were basically upper caste. And in those days, upper castes were better educated and they would question the British. So therefore, they wanted to bring in more peasant communities into soldiering and get rid of the Bengal army, which they said is very effeminate. And these were the kind of accusations or the studies what they brought out showed. So in the process, what we see is that linkage between power, knowledge, governance, and where ethnography and other modes of classification became the colonial modality of representation, linking politics and epistemology in a tight embrace for the last century of the British rule in colonial India. Now, I'll finish in the next 2-3 slides very quickly. So what you find is the legacy of this martial race that exists today. Like in the British Army, the Gorkha Brigade, for the 200 years, they've been recruited. And what do they say? They are tough, they are brave, they are durable, they are amenable to discipline. This kind of creation of a myth about people, whether and it helped the colonial rule, colonial strategy, and that still continues. For Indian Army, you still find battalions like caste-based, like Jat, Rajput, Dogra, Gurkha, Maratha. These are all, even in the Indian Army today, these battalions exist. So therefore, this whole process of a legacy still continues. And that also seen in the persistence of caste today, impact of colonial construction, the commonalities of these features that we discussed. And that is seen much more concretely in caste endogamy. And for the reproduction of the caste system, caste endogamy is crucial. If you look at this table here, you find it's a table from 2013, 2011, 2012 by Human Development Survey of India. It shows that only 5% of the population, you find intercaste marriage exists. All other marriages are caste-based, arranged. Therefore, the whole caste will continue to perpetuate, because when it is arranged, when it is community consensus, parental consensus for arranged marriage means you reproduce caste system. That's why Ambedkar said, the real remedy for breaking caste is intercaste marriage, intermarriage. Nothing else will serve as a solvent of caste system. Now you also find this is being where the South Asian populations move into outside India. In Europe, in the US, Australia, you find the continuation of caste in the diasporas. And that's why caste discrimination was questioned in the UK. It was experienced by over 200,000 people, they say, are vulnerable to caste discrimination, especially in service sector, healthcare, education, employment. And therefore, they wanted this to be included in the Equality Act of 2010. So there was a lot of debate, discussion still going on, although the government rejected it in 2018, because there was counterclaims that no caste in the UK exists. So making it part of, as a legislation, would reinforce caste system. These were the kind of counter arguments. But the issue is still very much alive. Now I'm coming to the last slide. The question now asked is, when was or is the post-colonial? Can we talk about independence as the cutoff mark between colonial and the post-colonial? It becomes so problematic because the systems of colonization deeply inscribed upon societies of both the colonized and the colonizer, that they cannot be eradicated with the act of declaring independence. Therefore, the coloniality of power, knowledge, and being, any kind of a counter to colonial production of self and knowledge and power, has to start from addressing the coloniality of power, knowledge, and being. Thank you.